She touched my wrist as if it meant nothing, just a passing gesture, but it stayed long after her hand was gone. I remember thinking, no one ever touches like that by accident. The afternoon light had begun to fade through the tall windows, painting everything in gold and dust. She stood near the counter, sleeves rolled up, hair loose for once. I had seen her 100 times before, in meetings, in hallways, walking briskly past, but that day she seemed slower. Like she'd finally stopped pretending to be somewhere else. She looked up and caught me watching. "What?" she asked, smiling, the kind of smile that dared you to keep looking. "Nothing," I said. My voice came out lower than I meant. "You just, seem different today." "Oh?" She leaned against the table, arms crossed, head tilted. "Different good or different bad?" The question hung there longer than it should have. I wanted to say both, that she made everything complicated in the best way. That I couldn't stop noticing how her presence made the air feel warmer. But I just shrugged instead. "Good," I finally said. "Different good." Her laugh was soft, not rehearsed, not polite. It was the kind that slipped out when someone forgot to be careful. For a second, she looked younger. Then she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and straightened up, like she remembered who she was supposed to be. She started gathering papers from the table, and I noticed her hands, steady, elegant, with faint lines that said she'd lived more life than I had. When she brushed my fingers to hand me a folder, my breath caught. She didn't pull away right away, just let the touch linger half a heartbeat longer than necessary. We both noticed. "Thanks," I said too quickly. "Of course." She looked down at the papers, then back up, her voice quieter. "You always look like you want to say something but never do." That hit deeper than it should have. I wanted to tell her everything I shouldn't, how I replayed her words at night, how her perfume stayed on my sleeve when I passed her desk, how being near her felt like standing too close to a secret. But all I said was, "I don't want to say the wrong thing." She studied me for a long time. There was something almost tender in the way her gaze softened. "Sometimes," she said, "the wrong thing is exactly what you need to say." Her words should have sounded casual, but they didn't. They landed somewhere heavier, like she wasn't talking about small talk anymore. Outside, a breeze pushed against the window, and a few loose pages fluttered to the floor. I bent to pick them up, and when I stood, she was closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her body even before she moved. Neither of us said a word. Her perfume, something faintly citrus and wood, blurred the edges of thought. For a moment, it felt like everything in the room paused to listen, the clock, the hum of the lights, even the air itself. She reached for one of the papers in my hand, her fingers grazing mine again. This time, she didn't pull away. Then the door opened. Her name, spoken by someone else, cut through the stillness. She stepped back like waking from a dream, her hand falling away, her posture resetting into the version of herself the world was allowed to see. But she looked at me once more before turning. A look that said everything she couldn't risk saying out loud. And for the rest of the evening, my wrist still burned where her hand had been. I told myself it was harmless, that I was just helping her with another late project, nothing more. But the longer we sat in that quiet office, the more every sound started to mean something. The faint rustle of her sleeves, the tap of her pen, the sigh she didn't realize escaped when she leaned back. She'd stopped pretending she wasn't tired. The glow from the desk lamp softened the lines near her eyes, not flaws, really, just proof that she'd lived a life before I ever showed up in it. "You don't have to stay," she said, her voice low, warm. "It's late." "I don't mind," I said. "You shouldn't be here alone." She smiled faintly. "I'm used to it." That one sentence stayed in the air. I could hear the story behind it, the kind you don't tell in one sitting. The marriage that ended quietly, maybe. The son who didn't call as often as he should. The years of taking care of everything and everyone until she forgot what it felt like to be taken care of herself. She caught me looking at her again, and for once, she didn't look away. "You ever get tired of being the responsible one?" I asked. Her eyes softened. "Every day. But someone has to be." Silence followed, comfortable, then not. I shifted closer to the desk, pointing at a line in the document, just to have something to do. Our shoulders brushed. She didn't move. My pulse kicked up before my thoughts could catch up. Her perfume drifted across that inch of air between us, quiet, steady, impossible to ignore. This part, I said, pretending to focus, doesn't sound like you. She leaned in, her breath brushing my cheek. That's because I didn't write it. Her voice had a rough edge now, tired, real. I glanced at her, and for a second, her guard slipped. There it was, the truth she kept tucked behind perfect posture and careful words. She noticed me noticing, and that was the problem. Don't look at me like that, she said, soft but sharp. Like what? Like you see something you're not supposed to. I should have said sorry. Instead, I smiled. Maybe I do. She didn't answer. Just held my gaze a little too long before exhaling through her nose. Not quite laughter, not quite surrender. Her hand rested briefly on my shoulder as she stood. The touch was light, yet it stayed long enough to register as something else entirely. Thank you, she said. For staying. I nodded. Any time. She reached for her coat, then hesitated, eyes flicking back toward me. The light caught the gold in her hair, the outline of her throat when she swallowed a word she didn't want to say. For a moment, she seemed like she might cross that last bit of distance. But instead, she smiled, small, knowing, and whispered, You should go before I forget how old you are. Then she brushed past me, her hand grazing my arm, soft, deliberate. I didn't move until the echo of her footsteps disappeared down the hall, the warmth of her touch still humming beneath my sleeve. The next week, it wasn't supposed to happen again. She'd asked for help with a proposal. Just for a few minutes. But a few minutes turned into an hour, then 2. By the time the office emptied, only the hum of the vending machine and the low buzz of the overhead light were left. She sat beside me this time, not across. Her shoulder brushed mine when she shifted to look at the screen. I could feel the warmth of her skin through the thin fabric of her blouse. Every time she reached past me for the keyboard, I forgot what I was supposed to be typing. This part, I said, my voice tighter than I meant, should probably be reworded. She leaned closer, her breath catching against my ear as she looked at the monitor. Show me. My hand trembled slightly on the mouse. I hoped she didn't notice. The space between us shrank to nothing. I could see the faint pulse in her throat, the soft rise and fall of her breath. She smelled like coffee and rain. She'd walked through it earlier, and something about it made my thoughts scatter. You're quiet tonight, she said. Trying not to say something stupid, I muttered. She smiled, the kind of smile that wasn't about amusement but understanding. That's usually when people say what they mean most. Her words hung there. Then, faintly, a knock echoed from the hallway. She flinched. So did I. A colleague's voice drifted through the half-open door. Hey, you still in here? She straightened immediately, her hand leaving the back of my chair. Yes, she called out too quickly. Just finishing up. The door pushed open another inch. Oh, sorry. Didn't realize you weren't alone. The silence that followed was razor-thin. I turned slightly, trying to look normal, casual, anything but what I felt. Her tone shifted into something practiced, professional. He's helping with the layout. We're almost done. The voice from the door lingered another second before saying, All right. Don't stay too late. When the door clicked shut, the room exhaled. She looked at me then, really looked, eyes wide, pulse still visible at her throat. I almost laughed from the tension, but it wasn't funny. It was dangerous. See? She said, whispering now. This is what happens. What? When you stay too long. But she didn't move away. Instead, she reached to close the laptop, and her hand brushed mine again, slow, deliberate. I didn't pull back. The faint hum of electricity between us returned, louder this time, filling the silence like static. She hesitated, lips parting just slightly, and in that small movement, everything in me leaned forward. We didn't kiss. Not really. But her breath touched mine, warm and trembling, and that was enough to make the air spin. She pulled back first, her expression unreadable. This can't. She started, then stopped. Her voice broke into a whisper. But I don't want it to stop either. I swallowed hard. Then don't. She closed her eyes for a beat, long, quiet, dangerous, and when she opened them again, something had changed. Neither of us moved. Yet somehow, we were closer than ever. It had been days since that almost moment, long enough for it to fade, if it were ever going to. But it didn't. The memory kept replaying in smaller ways. The pause before she spoke, the way her eyes lingered when no one else was looking, the quiet inhale when I was near. That evening, she called me into her office again. Just a quick review, she said, though her voice lacked conviction. The door clicked shut behind me, and the sound felt final. She stood by the window, city lights casting reflections across her face. Her blouse was unbuttoned just enough to suggest she'd stopped caring about formality hours ago. When she turned, her expression wasn't composed, it was tired, conflicted, alive. We can't keep this, she started, but her voice wavered. People talk. I know, I said. But that's not why you called me in, is it? Her eyes flicked up sharply, defensive then soft. You think you know me that well? No, I said, stepping closer. I just know how it feels when you're pretending. She exhaled through her nose, almost a laugh, almost a surrender. You shouldn't. But I do. For a heartbeat, either of us moved. The distance between us was the last fragile thread holding back everything we'd been avoiding. She tried to speak again, but the words got lost somewhere between thought and breath. When I reached up, without planning to, a lock of her hair had fallen forward, and had brushed it gently back behind her ear. My fingers grazed her skin, and she froze. Don't, she whispered, though she didn't pull away. Her eyes closed, and for the first time, I saw the war happening inside her, desire tangled with fear, wanting colliding with restraint. I've spent years keeping my life neat, she murmured. Predictable. Safe. Does it make you happy? No, she said, almost too quiet to hear. It makes me lonely. That broke something open in the air. She turned toward me then, slow, deliberate, until we were close enough that our breaths began to mingle. The light from the window caught in her eyes, and I could see myself reflected there, smaller, younger, but wanted. Her hand found my chest, just resting there, the weight of it both grounding and electric. My pulse thudded beneath her palm. She looked down at it, then up at me. This is a mistake, she said. Then let it be one we both make, I replied. Her lips parted, trembling slightly. She leaned in, just enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath near my mouth, the edge of a confession about to spill. Then, a vibration broke the moment. Her phone buzzed loudly on the desk, lighting up with a name she didn't want me to see. She stepped back fast, hand to her forehead, the spell shattered. The distance felt unbearable. I tried to say something, but she just shook her head. Don't, she whispered. Not now. She turned away, but her voice, low and shaking, reached me before she did. Because if I don't stop this right now, I won't stop at all. The next morning, the air between us was different, heavier, like something unspoken had already happened. She didn't meet my eyes when I walked in, and I didn't trust myself to speak first. We spent the day pretending. I talked about edits and deadlines. She nodded at the right moments. But her hand shook once when she reached for her coffee, and that tiny tremor gave her away. It wasn't until late afternoon that everything cracked. I was heading to the elevator when I heard her voice from inside her office, low, tense, not the tone she used with me. Another voice answered. A man's. I shouldn't have stopped to listen. But I did. It's not what you think, she said. The man scoffed. Then what is it? You've been distracted for weeks. Everyone notices. I said it's nothing. Does he know that? There was a pause long enough to feel endless. Then, softer, Almost broken, she said. He shouldn't have to. The door opened suddenly. She froze when she saw me standing there. The man, older, sharp-eyed, glanced between us, reading too much too fast. I should go, he muttered, brushing past me. Silence fell again, thick and echoing. She leaned against the doorframe, eyes shut tight. You weren't supposed to hear that. I didn't mean to, I said. But is he? An ex? She cut in quickly. He doesn't matter. But her voice betrayed her. Not the words, the way her breath hitched afterward, the kind that only comes from something that still stings. I took a hesitant step forward. He thinks there's something between us. Her eyes opened, sharp, conflicted. Isn't there? That question stopped me cold. I didn't answer right away, and the silence became unbearable. She stepped toward me, slow, measured, every movement deliberate, like she was crossing into something she couldn't return from. I told myself this was nothing, she said. That I could stop before it became real. Her hand brushed my arm, a ghost of a touch, trembling slightly. But I don't know how to be around you without wanting more. I felt every word against my skin, every inch of air closing between us. You think this is easy for me? She whispered. You think I don't know what people would say? I don't care what they say. Yes, you do, she said. You're still young enough to think you don't. Her tone broke something in me, not anger, not shame, just raw truth. I reached up before I could stop myself, fingers brushing the side of her face. She didn't flinch this time. Her eyes searched mine, wide and wet and unguarded. You don't even know what you're doing to me, she said, her voice a mix of fear and confession. Then tell me, I whispered. Please. She took my wrist, her grip unsteady. If I do, she said, barely breathing, there won't be any going back. And she didn't let go. Night found us again, though either of us planned it. The office was empty, lights dimmed to a faint amber hum. I told myself I wouldn't go to her, that it was better to let the silence stretch. But she was there, waiting by the window, looking out at nothing. You shouldn't be here, she said without turning. Neither should you, I replied. She laughed once, short and tired. We're terrible at pretending, aren't we? I took a few steps closer. The air between us carried that familiar pull, the one that made every reasonable thought vanish. When she finally turned, the look in her eyes wasn't just desire. It was surrender and fear tangled together. I told him it was over, she said quietly. Months ago. But seeing you, it made me realize it never really was. I was still living the same life, still doing everything I was supposed to. And now? I asked. No, she said, voice breaking slightly. I can't tell if you're what I want or what I'm running from. I stopped just inches away. The light caught her face, and for a moment she looked almost undone, hair loose, lips parted, eyes bright with something too honest to hide. You don't have to run, I said. Not from me. Her breath hitched. You don't know what this costs me. Then let me share it. Her hand lifted, uncertain, and rested against my chest. My heartbeat answered before I could speak. I covered her hand with mine. Neither of us moved, but the air thickened, every inhale louder than the last. I've thought about this, she whispered. I know. I've tried not to. I know that too. A faint tremor ran through her fingers. She looked up, searching my face for a reason to stop, maybe even hoping I'd give her one. I didn't. I couldn't. She reached for me then, slow and hesitant, her palm brushing the side of my neck. Her thumb traced along my jaw, and my breath faltered. The world seemed to shrink to the space between us, that single, dangerous inch that meant everything. Her lips hovered near mine, close enough that I could feel her breath, soft and shaking. This isn't fair, she said. No, I whispered. It's real. Her eyes closed, her forehead resting lightly against mine. The quiet between us wasn't empty anymore, it pulsed with everything we hadn't said. Then, softly, if I cross this line, I can't go back. Then don't look back, I said. A tear slipped down her cheek, and before I could stop myself, I brushed it away with my thumb. That touch broke the last of her restraint. She leaned in, not a desperate rush, but a quiet surrender, her lips barely brushing mine in the faintest, trembling kiss that felt more like a confession than an act. When she finally pulled away, her eyes met mine with a clarity that hadn't been there before. Now you know, she whispered. Everything. And for once, neither of us tried to pretend any more.